Well, Bojo the Clown is back in action. Now, every time he's involved himself in any way, shape, or form with Ukraine, we've ended up with thousands and hundreds of thousands of more dead Ukrainians. I know that President Trump recently said some things. I think he was in error. Moscow is not interested in any agreement that allows NATO troops, specifically French or British, to take up residence under any circumstances, whether they're peacekeepers or anything else in Ukraine. So I think that's unfortunate. And if President Trump really wants this agreement to work, he needs to go back and carefully examine Putin's words. But of course, Bojo the Clown is interested in creating the illusion that we're going to end up with a Ukraine inside NATO at some future date. And that, of course, is a non-starter. We may not see NATO around very much longer as it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, the battlefield in Ukraine is heating up once again with dramatic developments over the past 48 hours. In Kursk, Ukraine's front line has collapsed rapidly and Kiev's forces are retreating en masse. A scenario that should surprise no one as Russia's forces continue to dominate. Colonel Douglas Macgregor has long warned about Ukraine's inevitable downfall under these circumstances. Let's dive deep into the details of Moscow's lightning-fast advances. According to the latest field reports, Russian forces have successfully captured several strategic locations in a matter of hours. Kursk, once a stronghold of Ukrainian defense, has now become a testament to Russia's overwhelming superiority. Over the past 48 hours, over 3,000 Ukrainian troops have retreated from their positions, leaving behind massive stockpiles of abandoned weapons and military equipment. These numbers indicate a significant breakdown in the Ukrainian chain of command, as commanders are unable to rally their troops against the unyielding Russian offensive. Starting with the most crucial development over the past 2 days, Kiev's front line in Kursk has collapsed in spectacular fashion. According to reports from Military Summary, Ukrainian units are retreating in the face of Russia's relentless assault. As of now, Moscow has fully secured the areas of Pogrebki, Marievka, and Orlovka. But the most shocking event is that Ukrainian forces in Novaya Sorotina have surrendered unexpectedly. This collapse did not happen overnight. It was the result of a well-executed Russian strategy that focused on encirclement and attrition warfare. Reports indicate that Russian forces have deployed more than 800 artillery strikes in just 24 hours, targeting key defensive positions and forcing Ukrainian troops into disarray. The combined use of air superiority, drone surveillance, and armored thrusts has left Kiev's forces with no option but to retreat. The situation is further worsened by the logistical nightmare Ukraine faces: dwindling ammunition supplies, interrupted reinforcements, and a lack of effective countermeasures against Russia's advancing forces. Moscow is not stopping there. Russia's multi-directional assault strategy has proven highly effective. Ukrainian forces in Malaya Luchnia are now directly threatened by a two-pronged encirclement. With the Golden Route cut off, Kiev will have no escape. At the heart of this strategy lies a devastating precision strike campaign. Russian hypersonic missiles and UAVs have targeted Ukrainian command centers, crippling their ability to coordinate defensive maneuvers. Reports suggest that Ukraine has lost nearly 100 armored vehicles in the past 72 hours alone, with Russian forces capturing at least 10 of them intact. The losses for Ukraine are mounting rapidly, and if this pace continues, Kursk will soon be completely under Russian control. And this is just the beginning. As Kursk falls, Russian forces are pushing further south. Let's turn to Pokrovsk and Toretsk, where intense battles are raging. While Kursk has fallen into Russian hands, the situation is no better for Kiev in the south. Ukrainian forces in Pokrovsk and Toretsk are struggling to hold their ground, but Moscow has meticulously prepared. According to Military Summary, Russian troops have unleashed relentless artillery strikes on Konstantinovka, turning the area into a living nightmare for Ukrainian defenders. Military experts report that over 70 missile and drone strikes have been launched on Ukrainian defensive fortifications in this sector, with Russian forces systematically dismantling Kiev's last strongholds. Colonel Douglas Macgregor has repeatedly pointed out that Ukraine lacks the resources to maintain prolonged defenses, and the current collapse is proving him right. And notably, according to Ukraine's general staff, there have been over 118 intense battles across the front line in the past 24 hours. The relentless airstrikes on Slavyansk and Kramatorsk are becoming a significant headache for Kiev. Intelligence reports indicate that Ukrainian forces are running out of munitions, with some units reportedly firing their last rounds before retreating. Russian forces have capitalized on this weakness, deploying heavy mechanized divisions to press forward into Ukrainian-held territories. Footage from the battlefield confirms large-scale Ukrainian casualties, with at least 3 major battalions completely wiped out in just 48 hours. Further complicating Ukraine's position is Russia's continued air superiority. Reports confirm that Russian fighter jets have neutralized at least 20 enemy drones and destroyed 4 critical supply convoys attempting to resupply Ukrainian forces in Toretsk. Without adequate supplies and reinforcements, it is only a matter of time before Kiev's forces collapse completely in this sector. With the situation worsening, can Ukraine hold the line any longer? Meanwhile, Russian forces are pushing closer to the administrative border of Dnipropetrovsk. Ladies and gentlemen, according to reports from Ryber, Russian forces have officially seized Nikolskoye and Novaya Sorokina and are now advancing into Lebedevka. These are crucial steps in reaching the administrative border of Dnipropetrovsk. The rapid movement of Moscow's troops in this direction is no accident. It is part of a larger, well-coordinated strategy to stretch Ukrainian defenses beyond their limits and force them into complete disarray. In the last 72 hours, Ukrainian forces in this region have faced unrelenting pressure from Russian artillery barrages and air strikes. Reports confirm that over 120 high-impact missile strikes have been carried out against Ukrainian fortifications, significantly weakening their defensive capabilities. Intelligence from the battlefield suggests that Ukrainian forces are struggling with severe shortages of ammunition and of armament and have already lost more than 1,000 troops in this sector alone. Colonel Douglas Macgregor has emphasized that Ukraine's inability to maintain supply lines is now playing a decisive role in its military failures. The latest satellite images indicate that Russian forces have begun targeting key logistical hubs, making it nearly impossible for Kiev to resupply its frontline troops effectively. Meanwhile, additional Russian armored columns are being deployed along the main highways, tightening their grip on Ukrainian-held territory and preparing for an even deeper penetration into the region. Further south at Liman, Russian assault troops have expanded their control over Yampolovka and are pressing deeper into Ivanovka. This region is critical, as it serves as one of the last strongholds for Ukraine's defensive network in the area. If Ivanovka falls, Russian forces will have a direct path toward deeper penetration into Ukrainian-controlled territories. But the most critical aspect of Russia's advance is the imminent threat to the Sudzha-Yunakovka highway. If Moscow's troops successfully cut off this vital route, all remaining Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region will be trapped, unable to escape the Russian encirclement. With the Ukrainian military structure on the verge of collapse, we must now look at how the West is reacting to these stunning developments. As Ukraine's battlefield continues to crumble, the West is scrambling to intervene. The Vice President Donald Trump recently met with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, declaring that the Ukraine conflict will either end soon or never end at all. A rather contradictory statement, isn't it? But beneath the surface, it signals growing divisions within the Western alliance on how to handle the deteriorating situation in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the UK has announced its readiness to send troops and aircraft to Ukraine to secure a peace agreement. However, military analysts, including Colonel Douglas Macgregor, have criticized this move, stating that it is nothing more than a desperate attempt to maintain Western influence in the region. Macgregor warns that any direct Western military intervention will likely escalate the conflict rather than resolve it. Adding to the tensions, NATO is considering deploying additional intelligence-gathering missions along Ukraine's borders, with drones and reconnaissance aircraft actively monitoring Russian movements. Poland and Romania, recognizing the risks of Ukraine's collapse, have significantly increased their military expenditures. Poland alone has committed over $10 billion to bolstering its defenses, with plans to purchase additional fighter jets, armored vehicles, and missile defense systems. At the same time, reports from European intelligence agencies indicate that some NATO members are beginning to question the effectiveness of continued military aid. France and Germany, for example, have quietly reduced the pace of their weapons shipments to Kiev, citing logistical challenges and financial constraints. Some EU leaders have privately admitted that prolonging the war could have detrimental consequences for Europe's already struggling economy. Despite these efforts, the reality on the ground remains grim for Kiev. Over the past month alone, more than 15,000 Ukrainian troops have been either killed or wounded, with many units suffering critical shortages of ammunition. The Ukrainian Air Force, which once played a crucial role in defending major cities, has lost nearly 30 aircraft in just the last 3 weeks due to relentless Russian air superiority. Furthermore, Russia's strategic advances have significantly hampered Ukraine's ability to launch a meaningful counteroffensive. The ongoing destruction of Ukraine's energy infrastructure has left millions without electricity, with rolling blackouts reported in several major cities. As the war drags on, Western nations are growing increasingly hesitant to provide Ukraine with further military aid. Reports confirm that multiple EU nations are now reassessing their arms shipments, citing financial strain and lack of effectiveness. The cracks in the Western alliance are becoming more visible by the day, and Ukraine may soon find itself more isolated than ever before. And now we must examine another crucial factor in this conflict: economic warfare. Are Western sanctions truly damaging Russia, or are they simply backfiring? Let's take a closer look. Another significant move: Turkey has slashed its Russian oil imports by nearly 4 times following new U.S. sanctions. With nearly 1/3 of Russian seaborne oil exports affected, could this pose a serious challenge to Moscow? At first glance, it may appear so, but deeper analysis reveals a different picture. Russian energy exports have long been a cornerstone of its economy, and while Western sanctions have created short-term disruptions, Moscow has been quick to adapt. According to financial reports, Russia has successfully redirected a significant portion of its oil exports to Asian markets, particularly China and India. Colonel Douglas Macgregor has pointed out that Western attempts to economically strangle Russia have repeatedly failed due to the Kremlin's ability to establish alternative trade networks. Despite a temporary drop in revenue, Russia's ability to sustain its war effort remains largely intact. According to data from the Russian Ministry of Finance, oil and gas revenues still accounted for over 40% of the national budget last month. Meanwhile, the Russian ruble has stabilized against the US dollar, indicating that Moscow has successfully mitigated the immediate economic shock. Furthermore, new intelligence from the energy sector suggests that Turkey itself may be seeking alternative methods to bypass the restrictions. Reports indicate that Turkish refineries are now purchasing Russian oil through indirect channels, disguising imports through third-party nations. This maneuver allows Turkey to maintain its energy supply while technically adhering to US-imposed sanctions. At the same time, European countries are facing unintended consequences from their own sanctions. As Russia reduces its energy supply to the continent, natural gas prices in Germany and France have surged by more than 40% in just the past 2 months. This price increase is straining industrial production, with multiple German factories announcing temporary shutdowns due to soaring energy costs. Meanwhile, major oil companies, including BP and Shell, have reported significant profit losses as a result of restricted access to Russian crude. The question remains, will Western economic measures ever succeed in crippling Moscow's war efforts? Based on current trends, the answer appears increasingly doubtful, with Russian troops securing more victories on the battlefield and its economy proving more resilient than expected. The strategic balance continues to shift in Moscow's favor. As the situation unfolds, one thing is clear: Ukraine's window for a successful counteroffensive is closing fast, and with it, the West's ability to control the outcome of this conflict. What are your thoughts on these latest developments? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on the most critical news about the Ukraine war. See you in the next report.